morning. It is Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, with Israeli elections underway, so are the polls. We'll take a closer look. U.S. embassies are on high alert around the world today following the release of a top-secret torture report. And finally, later on the show, something lighter, 50-year-old Monica Bellucci makes history as the oldest Bond girl in the latest 007 movie installation. Good morning. I am Yael Levi, but we do begin today with the Israeli elections that are underway. And yesterday, a final tally vote in the Israeli Knesset. It's official. Israel is going to the polls. Yesterday, the Knesset voted to dissolve itself, making March elections a fait accompli, to quote Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman. Even before the votes were tallied, politicians were already busily forming alliances with the center-left parties, tripping over themselves in an attempt to form a bloc to prevent Netanyahu from winning a third term in office, and the right rallying up their base by attempting a last-minute cash infusion to the settlements to the tune of $12 million. We're joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev, who is on hand to give us the latest. Good morning, Tal.
Good morning.
And we are very honored to be also joined by Professor Avi Dgani. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Of the Geocartography Polling Agency, I pronounced it right, here to discuss the survey industry in Israel, which experiences a boom period every time politicians decide they prefer campaigning to lawmaking. Thank you for joining us, both of you. But before we begin, let's watch the following report about the latest from the Israeli parliament.
After 671 days and a few hours since the last polling day, the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, votes today to disperse, thus officially paving the way for new elections. Even without the vote, it was clear, as it has been for the past week, that elections were in the air. Before the vote, the lawmakers engaged in a marathon of passing last-minute legislations in keeping with the high energy that swept the parliament corridors today. For moments, it almost looked like a celebration. Lawmakers said that it was simply in anticipation of a much-needed change.
Usually, when there is a dissolving of the Knesset, the adrenaline is high, both in coalition, both in opposition. I am in the opposition. I wanted so much to shorten the life of this government. I am glad. I am happy.
Look, it's better to smile than to cry, but I must say that it's not a very happy day today. I think that the situation that we are going to new elections after 2 years is not something that is good for the country.
It is a reason for great hope. We certainly hope that this government, that its policy has been led us to disasters in so many aspects, will change to a different government.
Party leaders were less festive.
This is the opportunity in these elections to replace the current prime minister and create a different government.
This is the time to set aside egos and find the right outline to enable all of us to work together as one bloc, meaning an especially large Labour Party.
Judging by the atmosphere in the Israeli parliament today, the March 17th deadline could not have been more welcome.
Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent with us in studio. Yesterday was the fait accompli, to put it, in Avigdor Lieberman's words. But, first of all, what happened and what are we looking at? All these alliances that are coming up. Actually, you know what? Before that, the interesting bit to me is the $12 million. Was that passed?
Well, it hasn't been passed at the moment, and it could have been blocked by the Attorney General, who is trying to block it. The opposition did appeal to the legal advisor of the Knesset, who passed it on to the legal advisor of the government, and this could be blocked. But it's not a it's a well-known stunt, one might say. We're 24 hours before the Knesset dissolves, and Netanyahu and his new ally, the Jewish Home, want to appeal to their voters, to their constituents on the right wing, and they try and pass a very fast, and if you ask the opposition, stealing the money, more than, as you mentioned, $12 million to the settlements. At the moment, that has been blocked, but that, of course, that opened the day in the parliament. So it basically, that was the atmosphere that it already started out on very high levels. Everyone was in very high intent. It was a very happening day yesterday at the parliament, as one can expect.
Now, with approximately 4 months to go before the March 17th.
97 days. 98 days.
98 days. 98 days to the elections. With that time, the alliances that we're looking at. Minister Tzipi Livni, formerly of Kadima, a woman who actually was raised on the right-wing knees, so to speak, when we look at her political ideology, now about to go into labor. Where does it stand?
Well, Tzipi Livni, up until 1 week ago, you would see her walking around in the Knesset with a very sad and miserable face, and suddenly yesterday you see her smile. In the past few days, she's smiling, she's blooming. She is being courted by both the Labour Party and the Yesh Atid Party. There is an attempt to create a bloc, especially Livni and Herzog from the Labour Party, because of recent polls that showed that both of them together do bring a substantial, much more substantial amount of voters, one that could, according to some polls, make them the biggest party in the next parliament. Right. So there is an attempt to create this kind of bloc, but there's still politics behind it. If it means to merging Livni into the Labour Party means that some of the current lawmakers in the Labour Party will probably have to give up their seats for members of the Tnuah that will have their seats consolidated, and that could create a few more problems. So Lapid is still trying to court Livni, but it seems like Lapid is the lame duck at the moment of this whole election campaign up until now. That, of course, can totally change. We're just at the beginning.
No, and we, of course, for that are very honored to be joined by Professor Dgani, who, is here to give us the insight about polls. Speaking of Lapid, and last elections, everybody was shocked when at the end of those elections, he came out with 19 mandates. If we're looking at polls today, and I want to show you the latest poll that we have, we're looking at numbers that are, if elections were held today, Likud most likely, supposedly, would get 21 mandates, Jewish Home 18, Labour Party 17, Yesh Atid 12, Israel Beitenu 10, Kachlon is a new guy in the game, would get a 10. But, I'm looking at the numbers of Likud 21 and then, Yesh Atid 12. First of all, Professor Dgani, to you, these numbers...
How recent is this?
This is as recent as, I would say,
Sunday.
yesterday.
Sunday,
sorry.
And who produced it?
And this was produced by the Knesset, by the parliamentary channel in Israel.
And this was done by internet, probably.
Yes.
I don't like it. But I'd come back to your remarks about creating blocks. I think that creating blocks is a big mistake for everyone who's doing that, because history showed that all the times when you take A and B, you have at the margins of A and at the margins of B, you have a position to the blocking, to the jointing together. And this is what happened in the last elections to the Prime Minister.
How so?
Going with other.
With the
They have started with 27 and 15, 42, and got altogether 31. And again, this morning, you just told us about it. Some people in the Labour don't want to give Tzipi Livni 3 seats. And rightly so, if you ask me, because in my polls, she doesn't pass the 25% block. And if so, she wouldn't get anything into the parliament. So it's only her personality, whatever, is good for anyone who is joining them. But I can say on principle,
right.
Our experience is that all those pre-blocks don't work well. They better go and show their muscle separately and then join whatever to do.
Now, this is fascinating stuff, and I'm almost a little scared of you, I have to say, because of your knowledge. But that said, if
don't be, I'm a good guy.
No, you're definitely the oracle here. I'm wondering about Yesh Atid then. How does it happen? And we as voters, Tal and myself, that in the polls leading up to the last elections, the numbers for Yesh Atid weren't as high as what they came out with at the end of the election. So how did pollsters get it so wrong? And why should we trust the polls?
We don't get it wrong. Well, first, we do have differences between ourselves. We have all kind of different knowledge, information systems, methodologies, and so on. And it's very difficult to do polling in Israel because every time you come up to election day with about 20 free mandates, seats, undecided. And then people behind the curtain, as we call, by the ballot box, make up their decision. And so happened with Yair, and it goes also to the question how good polls are. We are street photographers. Street photographers in the sense that what's going on in the street now is what we catch. Tomorrow, the street doesn't look the same. Because if Prime Minister says to several members of his parliament or ministers, I fire you. 2 days later, he and his party don't look the same like 2 days ago. Last time that I balloted was about a week ago.
Right.
A week ago, and I had 27 mandates for the Likud. Some of my comrades had 24. I wouldn't speak too much about this, but what you asked about Lapid.
Yes.
At the beginning, we saw 2-3% when he was even undeclared, but we declared him, and everyone tried to see if he goes and if he like Kachlon today.
Like Kachlon, exactly. Kachlon is like the new Lapid in many ways in this elections.
Yes,
okay.
And I think that it might be quite similar, but not similar. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Then what happens is that in a short time, the street is very enthused with Mr. Lapid, and then all of a sudden you see 10%. And then all of a sudden, one day, myself, I see 20%. No, I see 20 seats.
26,
22
elections.
mandates. Everyone says that I'm crazy. But actually, what we measure is the heat of this particular day. People get enthused because of his appearance on television or anything that happened or anything bad that happened to his opponents and so on. Then all of a sudden, one day, the fever is, let's go for the guy. Okay? So he showed in my polls about a month and a half before election time the possibility of is going as high as 20 and maybe plus. Now we come to election day. Election day, most polls show 12 or 11 polls, mine as well. And then what happens is indeed we come to the election last time about 25 mandates open. Some who say that they don't know what they vote for, some say that they don't yet, and so on. They come in the last moment, and in the last moment, I can tell you, during this particular night and last moment, 9 mandates or 8 mandates came into being. Most of them, we know statistically, most of them, about 15% of the population, make their final decision behind the curtain. In the box at this particular moment. And he would say to him, man and husband, who shall we vote for? And they debate so and so, sometimes in the last moment, and they don't even vote the same.
Well, no, it's amazing that happens in Israel en masse in that way. I want to ask finally, this election, is Kachlon, I would say Kachlon is the wild horse, no?
Right.
Is he projected as kind of, as I asked before, as the new Lapid? I mean, because he can destabilize all these alliances, so to speak.
I don't have the feeling. Well, it's just a feeling. And
right.
We are not predictors, as I want all the time to say. Through time, everyone who understands, like this lady and yourself and so on, and a little bit myself, we understand what can happen. But we don't really know what's going to happen, and very precisely, because things like what I said about Lapid happen. And Kachlon, I feel, will not get as high as Lapid. Because I think only, I'm just a person.
Of course.
That quite a few people might say, well, look at Lapid, he started here. Kachlon was a very great minister and a great person and a great personality and so on, but not as much as to bring him up to, say, 18 seats in the parliament. I don't know how much he will end up. He, in my polls, had about 6 to 7 about a week ago.
Right.
I think that now he went up a little bit. Netanyahu went down about 3 mandates after he fired the ministers and so on. I don't know today, I didn't make it a poll. And some came up and some came down, it's balanced. And we don't know exactly how the Arabs are going to feel. And then you have the law of dividing all the surpluses, right, which is complicated unless you have agreements in between parties and so on. Now, you cannot bring this to a very precise poll. You can come close as possible with statistics to play the butter of a law and so on, which is the dividing method. But you cannot be very precise.
And if I could just add to that Kachlon, his whole existence is will be very much influenced from what is happening inside the Likud party, and it's still not clear if Netanyahu will be challenged by Gideon Sa'ar maybe for the Likud leadership. That could change the picture for all of, I think, for many of everything, and specifically for Kachlon. But also I agree with Professor Dgani that I think the Israeli public saw had this experience with Lapid, with this star list that came to the Knesset, and in the end were a lot of unexperienced people who did not know exactly how to promote their goals in the Knesset, and I think the Israeli public might be a bit exhausted.
Disillusioned in some ways.
And in many ways, maybe some of them will go back to the, to the traditional parties of the Likud party, the Likud, the Avodah, and what I would like to ask, they're talking a lot about the blocs and the center-left bloc, but in the end, when you look at the Israeli public, are they more right-wing or left-wing? Can the amount of votes in the center-left, is it enough? Is there a majority of center-left voters inside Israel?
There are wingers, okay, right and left. But in my opinion, we have mostly an extreme left and an extreme right, and in the middle, the great sense but lost people. And what we want to vote for, we want to vote for a personality.
Oh, we've become the United States.
A leader who is a person. I can trust him. I can trust him in any way, and so on. Let me say a word about Mr. Netanyahu. The polls have shown that he was 60% popular some time ago, which is not usual, and then he dropped now to only say 30-something. Right. And also, only I quote some of the professionals who speak about it, only 38% say he is the best person to be prime minister. But only no one comes to a third of that, but 10%, 10%, 8%, 6% for all other gentlemen, which means that still, with all the problems that he may have, he is more trusted than anyone else, with a great deal of criticism.
This is the discussion we can have all day. Professor Dgani, this was fascinating. Thank you for being with us. Stay around for just one more minute. Tal Shalev, as well as we move on to the next story. We move on to the United States, where a long-anticipated report on CIA detention and interrogation policies post 9/11 is set to be made public later today. Ahead of the 6,300-page report's release, U.S. embassies and military posts around the world, but particularly here in the Middle East, were put on high alert, fearing violent reactions to its finding. Now, the report is said to contain graphic details about sexual threats and other harsh interrogation techniques the CIA used out to capture militants. In Washington, bipartisan tensions soared over the expected release, as well with House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Republican Representative Mike Rogers, warning that U.S. allies overseas have already cautioned the report will cause violence and death, to quote him. To discuss this further, we will be joined by Mark Zell very shortly, but before we start our discussion, let's take a look at the following report about the tensions regarding this release.
Around the world, U.S. embassies and consulates are on high alert, bracing for the release of a secretive and controversial Senate report on torture.
The concern is over our military forces, our diplomats, and other officials around the world, particularly in areas where there are hotspots in the Middle East and North Africa.
President Obama banned the use of waterboarding years ago. It's not a secret that U.S. officials use questionable interrogation techniques at the CIA's so-called black sites during the Bush administration after September 11th.
We tortured some folks. We did some things that were contrary to our values.
A U.S. official says the Senate Intelligence Committee report is very graphic and will be shocking to some Americans. Some prisoners sexually humiliated, CIA interrogators continuing with torture even after determining there was no more information to be gained.
The consequence of releasing the report, no one has told me what the good news is by releasing this report.
In an interview with CNN, former President George W. Bush strongly defended the intelligence community.
These are patriots, and whatever the report says, if it diminishes their contributions to our country, it is way off base.
We are joined in studio by Mark Zell, representative for the American Republicans overseas. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Good morning, with me. Hello. Now, everybody around the world is talking about this report, and the White House has already responded to the decision to release it now, because the argument is, why now, even though it's been already 10 years. Josh Earnest of the White House had the following to say to the press in the United States, in D.C. yesterday. Let's have a listen to what he said.
The administration strongly supports the release of this declassified summary of the report. The president, on his first or second day in office, took the steps using executive action to put an end to the tactics that are described in the report. And the president believes that on principle, it's important to release that report so that people around the world and people here at home understand exactly what transpired There are obviously going to be some limits about what can be said given the classified nature of the program, but because of the scrupulous work of the committee and the administration and the intelligence community in particular, we've declassified as much of that report as we can.
Now, Mark, the House Intelligence Chairman, Republican Representative Mike Rogers, has warned severely against releasing this report. Why the concern?
Well,
I mean, of course, U.S. embassies are on high alert, but I mean, isn't this information that should be out there for the American public?
Well, it's a tough call. First of all, there's serious concern that a release of this report could result in disturbances around the Muslim world. This administration itself has cautioned against this and turned the clock back to 2012 and the whole events that led up to Benghazi. Yes, the American public needs to be engaged, as the public here in Israel was engaged in similar discussions years ago about the appropriate use of these tactics in order to combat terror. But we have to remember, Yael, that this is a war on terror. Now, this administration doesn't like to call it that, but that's what this is. And I think that, and here I have to side with the former President Bush, what the people at the CIA are doing and people in intelligence agencies all around the world, including here in Israel, is to try to combat a phenomenon which defies our ordinary definitions.
Going to the point, though, of the war on terror, because this report, and of course, it will be released later on today.
It's a summary.
It's a summary.
Right.
It's 6,300 pages of of that report. The summary will be released, most of it, declassified. But going back to the war on terror, because it does detail all these techniques post 9/11 under the Bush administration. That sound horrible. I mean, whatever information is already leaked out of it, if it's waterboarding, if it's walling, if it's sexual demeaning interrogation, which really don't seem to have worked, over the course of the last decade.
Well, there's some debate about that. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Zero Dark 30.
Yes, I did.
If you watched this, the television series Homeland, which is based on an Israeli program.
Mark, I love you, but that's movies in Hollywood.
No, those depict to the extent that we can see what goes on in part in these kinds of proceedings. Now, there are limits to what an intelligence agency or government ought to be doing in these kinds of cases. But you got to remember that in the wake of 9/11, when 3,000 American citizens died in the attack in New York, and when it wasn't at all clear what was yet in store. In fact, we know now that there were other attacks in store, and we know now that these same forces now and called different things, whether it's ISIS or Al Qaeda, are also continuing to plan attacks against civilian centers in Israel, the United States, around the Western world. I mean, what does a democracy do in a situation like this? It's a tough question. And what these people at the CIA were trying to do was get to the bottom. It wasn't atavism. It wasn't savagery. They had a job to do. When the president called them patriots, he did it for a reason. That's because these people were trying to get at the information, like the characters in the movies and the television series, to get the information to save lives.
Obviously, that was the agenda behind it, but it also went completely against American, values. Don't you agree with me that, interrogation methods as such destabilize what we as Americans, you and I, what people in the world know about it, destabilize the main core of American values. And not only that, I'll go back to the same point. It really, 10 years on, more than 10 years on, we seem to be, the entire world, at the same point that we were.
And there's a reason for that, Yael, okay? Because when reasonable people who operate within a democratic framework are trying to protect that very society against forces which are not operating according to the same principles, which are prepared to use the most horrific means in order to
use the same horrific means on them.
Well, look, to make that kind of comparison, I think, is unfair. What we're trying to do is prevent those kinds of those actions. These forces are intent on destroying Western society, destroying democracy, destroying the state of we have to. There's a balance. There is a balance, Yael. I think obviously there are limits beyond which any reasonable person or a civilized person can go. But let's say, I mean, you're dealing with a situation. You know that there's a threat to bring a nuclear dirty bomb into New York Harbor, and the person that you're dealing with, that you have in custody, has information that may well lead to the discovery of that device and the prevention of a catastrophic event. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to stand and behind what you call the democratic civilized values and prevent the interrogators from getting this information and saving thousands, perhaps even millions of lives. I mean, it is a tough call, and it's a tough call that we face here in Israel on a daily basis, where these threats are constantly arrayed against us. But we have to achieve a balance. Now, sometimes you go over the line, and sometimes and when that happens, there should be consequences to those that do.
The fear is that the line was crossed many times. But I think both you and I will agree that trying to crack the war on terror and what will work and what will not is yet to be discovered, and that's the sad point.
I think it's a fight that will be continuing for years to come. Unfortunately,
I'm wondering though out loud with you, why is this report coming out now? Why is the GOP, why is the Republican Party so concerned about it coming out now?
Well, look, first of all, the president made this report an issue of his administration from the very first days, as we heard in the report from Washington. And there is, while two Republicans did support it, or at least one Republican from Maine supported it in the Senate, it's been largely an activity carried on by the Democratic members of the Intelligence Committee under Senator Feinstein. So it does have this partisan color to it, and I think the Republicans, and like the former President Bush, are concerned that what the administration is trying to do is point the finger at as he often does, as the prior administration, for misconduct. I mean, the President of the United States, the CIA, those officials, including my former law partner, who were involved in trying to solve and to protect the American people against the most heinous attacks in recent memory, did what had to be done in order to protect the country. And the fact is, let's look at it. Since 9/11, the American public has not had to go through those kinds of events again, thank God. In part due to the vigilance of people in the intelligence agencies to protect and to obtain this information and to prevent these things from happening. It's worked. Now, there's got to be, we have to have a debate.
Yeah.
We have to have a debate, and we have to discuss it, and we have to draw the lines, but it's not a black and white situation.
It's not a black and white situation, but it sounds to me, and sadly all the time we have, that you are not against the release of this report that much.
I'm not against the release of it, because ultimately, in a democracy, we have to have a discussion.
We have to have the information.
That's right.
Exactly.
And you know what? I prefer it to come out now than, let's say, 3 weeks before the 2016 presidential election.
Sadly, all the time we have Mark Zell. Always such a pleasure to argue with you. Thank you for being with me this morning.
Well, it's not an argument. It's a discussion.
Exactly.
We're revealing the truth.
When we get back, we take a look at the gruesome murder investigation of 43 students in Mexico and where it stands. Stay with us. First, the news. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Staying with us, I-24 News Morning Edition, the place you should be on this December
9th.
Thank you.
Yes.
That would be Tony Grant, who is with me every morning. Also joined by Danny Swibel. I'm just showing you the men in the studio, who's with us for the next segment. Tony is here to join us daily, as he does daily, to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines, and there was a lot of it, right?
Lots of news, headlines, interesting stuff. We have some murmurs from Russia. So we'll just start real quick with the Jerusalem Post. Basically, the Kremlin seeking clarifications, before we get to that one, about Israel regarding the alleged airstrikes that hit Syria on Sunday, reportedly destroying Russian-made arms bound for Hezbollah. Right. But, of course, it's just,
It's murmurs.
It's murmur, yes.
Murmurs was the right word to say.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens on that front. Of course, a lot of interesting details there, but we've gotten into those, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it. I want to just talk about this story here, which is very dramatic stuff as well. The New York Times says that, according to UNICEF, 2014 is one of the worst years on record for the world's children. According to this new report, up to 15 million children are entangled directly in violent conflicts, ranging from Central African Republic to Syria and Ukraine. I don't know if Russia's listening to that one, but
maybe there's a sanction on that.
It's bad stuff. Globally, an estimated 230 million children are living in countries and areas riven by armed conflict. So, again, these are kind of staggering numbers.
I think what's so heartbreaking about this is that it's 2014. I mean, these are times that we are able as human beings and capable as human beings to save our fellow man. And it all seems to be going downhill, and I'm speaking slightly, emotionally as a mother, but it's just
it does speak to a lack of concern at the political level, which trickles down to impact on kids, which is.
I think it was last week that we had the staggering number of coming out of Syria.
Brings us to my next story here about Syria. Daily Star in Beirut says that Syrian refugees in Lebanon are now stranded by United Nations food cut. Basically, there's these sort of electronic vouchers that have been allowing almost 2 million Syrian refugees in Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey to get food. Basically, the money has run out. There's efforts to sort of replenish the supply, at least for December. But in the meantime, the article quotes some Syrian refugees saying things like, it's better to go home and die in war than starve across the border. It's bleak.
No, it's bleak, and I'm wondering also, Danny, I think it was you who was on the border a year ago, covering the Syrian refugee, and this is a year on, and it's still going on, and it's just getting worse, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, one can hope that, with greater media attention, that again at the international political level, that some things will change to, ameliorate the situation. But it is rough, and of course winter as well. So. Adding to that problem.
That everybody in the Western world that has something to eat this holiday season should take a look at. I have to say.
I agree. Yes. Politically interesting stuff back over in this neck of the woods. Times of Israel reported that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has announced a broad probe into Palestinian NGOs, non-governmental organizations. He's ordered an investigation into the legal status of almost 3,000 NGOs in the Palestinian territories, trying to basically, in an attempt to, what they're saying, to boost Palestinian nation-building efforts to kind of sift through corruption. Controversial even within Palestinian circles. This kind of thing.
It's fascinating. We have a show today that actually deals so much with corruption, and today, I don't know if you guys know, and we'll deal with it in the second hour of the show, but today is the International Anti-Corruption Day.
Oh.
And, and we need one, apparently. Yes.
Yeah, all over the world,
I think.
All over
the world we need, yes.
Also, Abbas was quoted in an article, in several, about an interview he did for an Egyptian paper last month. And it ties into this next story, which is in the paper that's online that I cannot pronounce. Allgemeiner.
Das Allgemeine. Da kann ich das sagen. Okay.
Leave the French to me. The German. Okay.
The Allgemeine. Yeah.
Check this out. White House statement ignores Brotherhood's continuing Hamas support, referring to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right.
Now, I mentioned Abbas. He basically said it to the Egyptian newspaper that he, in his most recent meeting with Obama, he quote-unquote disabused the president of the notion that any part of the Muslim Brotherhood should be considered moderate. Now, last week, the White House turned down an online petition which wanted the White House to label the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist, even though it is labeled as such in Egypt, obviously. So again, this is a political football. People are saying, why isn't the White House coming down harder on
I can theorize on that. I can give an answer to that. I think, on theories, because the White House, listen, the Muslim Brotherhood up until 2 years ago won democratic elections in Egypt. Then, the ball changed again, and now Sisi outlawed them and called them a terrorist group. But the thing is, throughout the history of the Middle East, they're not going away.
Right.
And I think the White House, and again, I'm theorizing as Americans, are trying to figure out who are the powers that will stay in the mix and who you can support and cannot. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but we, all of us as the White House do not know. That said, it's a hard game to play.
It's a hard game to play, but again, it also has implications on the domestic front in American electoral politics, because people use this as ammunition against Obama, saying, look where his sympathies lie. Big issue there. We won't get into it.
No, or as we like to say here on the show, a mess.
Yes.
Yes, it's a mess. Okay.
interesting, quirky story from China. The South China Morning Post points out that despite the fact that China's had a record trade surplus, there's a big issue with fragile domestic demand in China. So I'm no economist, but basically what this is saying is we have all these headlines about China being the #1 economy in terms of size, but when you look a little bit, beyond that that sort of very impressionable headline, you have things like this, which is basically saying it's not all peaches and cream, so to speak, because they've got some domestic consumption trends, which in the long run could actually undermine this so-called, the cliche that China's taking over the world.
Yeah, the defining moment that we yesterday reported as this is a switch.
Everyone is really.
Everyone's saying the 21st century has just switched over to China.
Yeah, so it's a bit more nuanced than that.
A bit, but they are doing well.
They're doing well. Well, and there's a lot of them.
There's a lot.
Yes, that brings me to the next story.
Yes.
A lot of them are complaining about Japan, which is no surprise. December 13th is the anniversary of the Japanese capture of Nanjing, which was Nanking at the time. So this was the so-called, the rape of Nanking, when it was 300,000 people were basically murdered and 20,000 women were raped. And every day leading up to this, the Chinese government is releasing a new archive which documents some of this
another
horrific
horrible
stuff.
Thing. Yeah.
So a non-governmental group is demanding some compensation and an apology. This is actually from a paper in Taiwan, which normally doesn't line up with the papers in mainland China, but on this issue, they are.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
I'm wondering what happens if the apology doesn't come through.
I would be surprised if the apology came through from the current Japanese government. And again, it's just the tensions are so fraught between these two countries, and this is one of the reasons, one of the big reasons why they just don't seem to get along in the sandbox.
Okay.
So to speak.
No, maybe we have another international feud and mayhem.
Ongoing.
Ongoing. They did have that handshake, that cold handshake.
There was the world's frostiest handshake, I think, between the Chinese president and the Japanese. Famously frosty.
Yeah, famously frosty. Is that all the time we have right now? But Tony, you're locked in the studio with us as we move on. Mexico City's police chief resigned yesterday amid sharp criticism of his office's handling of recent protests over the apparent massacre of 43 students who were attacked by police in the city of Iguala in the country's southwest, and then allegedly handed over to hitmen from a local drug cartel. Mexico City has been the scene of massive, sometimes violent protests in recent weeks over the fate of the students. Now, rights groups have also accused the police of indiscriminate violence against activists, journalists, and bystanders. On Sunday, Mexico's Attorney General announced that the remains of the students, 21-year-old Alexander Mora Venancio, had been identified, appearing to confirm the feared massacre. And so this case continues, and it shed light on the close ties between police and drug gangs, with dozens of officers arrested in the investigation. Danny Swibel, I-24 News correspondent, is in studio here with me to discuss it further. First, though, Danny, let's take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
It could be the final straw for the Mexican people. According to various sources, a first DNA testing identified one of the 33 students missing since late September.
If those murderers think that we are going to start crying because we have confirmed the DNA of one of our comrades, we want to tell them that they are wrong. From today, the struggle will continue until we find the other 42 comrades that are still missing alive.
The chart likely belonging to the 43 students had been recovered in a dump in the state of Guerrero. It is in that same state, close to the city of Iguala, that the students disappeared on September 26. They were taken hostage by a local police linked to a drug trafficking cartel. According to the investigation, the students would have been delivered by policemen to the hitmen belonging to the cartel.
I am really tired of living in fear in Mexico, and of not being able to go out in the streets in peace and quiet.
Our government must put an end to this corruption. Our army must take care of us, not kill our young people. This is why I'm here.
All over the country, not a day goes by that the demonstrators don't take to the streets. For the Mexican people, this is perhaps one massacre too many, and the government might pay the price.
Danny Swibel, I-24 News correspondent in studio. The story that has been covered all over the world is insane. And, we're looking at 43 students, but that's a number that, is actually just on on the heels of many more missing. Tell me.
This 43 has just become a symbol of the bigger issue of this crime and corruption that's totally dominating Mexico. 100,000 people have perished related to organized crime in Mexico since 2007. 22,000 cases of disappearances. So this 43, people are particularly sensitive to this because it was students.
Yeah.
And they were connected to a school that's a leftist school. It has a bit of a guerrilla background. But they were just going to protest, and they messed with the wrong people, the mayor of the town.
And his wife.
And his wife, who had direct family connections to the gang involved, Güeros Unidos.
Right.
And they took the students, and they are believed to have been thrown over a ravine, and then the remains burned and incinerated. What happens is people go and they find these mass graves, and then they investigate and they realize this is other mass graves. This is not necessarily the mass graves of the students. So these are found throughout the country, and the problem has continued and continued. Half the cities in Mexico from the U.S. State Department are believed to be under organized crime.
Unbelievable. We are also joined on the phone from Mexico itself by Alejandra. She's an activist, part of a group that looks for family members, missing family members. Alejandra, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you? And we're good, and thank you so much for being with us. As we said, one of the bodies has been identified. What are the reactions in Mexico when this news came out, and is there hope to find more?
Well, the first reaction, of course, is sadness, because we expected to find them alive. So the fact that they tell us that they recognized one of our guys dead, I mean, that's really sad.
Yeah.
So that was the first reaction. And after that, I think there is so much anger in Mexico. People is sad. People is tired of impunity, of injustice. So I think that those are the main feelings among Mexican community.
No, definitely. And I'm wondering with you, what are the next steps of groups that you're part with, of demonstrators? What are you planning to push forward an agenda of not just finding more bodies, sadly, but also to try and change the situation?
Yeah, well, the thing is that we are trying to change, the situation in Mexico. We cannot bring this kid alive right now, but we are willing to make a big change, to fight for justice. We are fighting for justice and for truth, because government has been telling so many different stories about this, and they are not really, they have no basis to say those things. So we are looking for truth.
No, stay with us. For truth, definitely. And I'm wondering with you, Danny, this is a corruption, when we're looking at the mayor and his wife, who supposedly are behind these killings. But as Alejandra said, they're trying for, looking for justice from the government. How high up does corruption go there when it comes to the involvement with the drug cartels?
This is what we're all unsure of. It's just who's in collusion with these drug gangs. Right. And a lot of the families actually directly went to President Enrique Peña Nieto, and they asked him, if you can't do something within a couple of days, maybe that means that you're a part of this. Either you're part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. Or if you're not part of the corruption, maybe you're too scared to do anything, meaning you're powerless to affect change. So it goes all around from different states throughout the country, and it's very hard. What now is happening is, at least with these 43, it's created a bit of a mass activism spreading throughout the country. So it is the hopes that with this Peña Nieto, if he can retain his presidency, that they could really affect change. What he wants to do is he wants to replace some of the municipal police forces with state-level units.
Right.
So ideally, you would remove some of the corruption, but when it's so permeated, when it's so deep in the system, this is going to be definitely an uphill climb.
Yeah, no. And finally, Alejandro, sadly, all the time we have it, do you think the government is going to do something to change it?
Well, we are not sure, but we are willing. We are hoping that they do something, because they have to. It's their responsibility to solve this problem, to to give justice for the families
For the
of
families,
the 43
definitely, of the
missing.
43. Alejandra.
And for all the Mexicans.
And amen to that. No, terrible story. We'll be following it through. Alejandra, thank you for being with us. Danny Swibel, same to you. And of course, when we get back, we are taking a closer look at the International Anti-Corruption Day, which dominates the show today. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. This is still the morning edition. I am still Yael Levi. You're still at the right place. And thank you for staying with us. Now, moving on, actually the theme of the show today. Earlier we spoke about the upcoming elections in Israel. But now we move to what comes after the politicians win us over and make it into office. Today is International Anti-Corruption Day, and it is a good opportunity to look at the phenomena through Israeli eyes. Israel is not the most corrupt country on earth. That dubious title goes to Somalia, which in this year's Transparency International Corruption Perception Index came in as 174th place. Nor does it rank up near Denmark, New Zealand, or Sweden. Israel is in 37th place, just a touch less corrupt than Spain, slightly more corrupt than Poland. To discuss this timely issue, we are joined in studio by investigative journalist Avner Hofstein.
Hi, good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you for being with us. You in Israel, you're the famous journalist who published a controversial report about gambling tycoon and I would say Likud Party sugar daddy, Sheldon Adelson. And I'm very, very happy to have you with us here. But in the lead up to the last election, former political insider Eldad Yaniv was also running. To those viewers who don't know it, he was running on a campaign. He was a former advisor, I think, to politicians.
To politician Barak, for example.
Barak, for example. And his entire campaign when he decided to enter politics was actually to look at the system and how Israeli politics is incredibly corrupt. Let's take a look at a commercial, sort of campaign commercial from the last election of Eldad Yaniv, explaining what the corrupt system is in Israel. Let's take a look.
There's a system here. Politicians are connected to money. Now they can't earn their money from their jobs because their salaries aren't that high. So they're linked to money men. Listen, people who make the decision to bomb Iran, they think they're masters of the universe. They think they deserve much more than they already earn. A salary of 30 or 40,000 shekels is nothing for them. They think they deserve much more. They run the world. Very quickly, they hook up with people who sponsor them, who give them money, and all sorts of benefits. Everyone who reaches the top, everyone who I've seen make it to the top, is surrounded by money, surrounded by wealthy people. When a politician is linked to money and people who give them money, the secrets begin. It's like secrets between criminals, and there's no tricks. I don't tell, and you don't tell.
Avner Hofstein, you know what, let's start by this. This, again, was from the last elections. And if we're talking about corruption, perception in the world, but how corrupt is Israeli politics?
Okay, so that's, you know, the big question, the money question. What Eldad is talking about here is the difference between what you see on stage, politicians talking about security, you know, buying weapons, Israel being a strong nation, blah, 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 Zionism. And then when they go to the back door, they have the back channels. They have the corrupt deals with big financiers from around the world and from Israel. And we just saw it with Olmert. You know, you see this guy who's Mr. Security. He does wars with our neighbors. And then you hear him on tape with his consigliere,
former Prime Minister
Ehud Olmert, with his consigliere, talking about basically, I'll give you money so you won't testify, you will testify. Something that you see among small-time criminals, allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
Allegedly, of course. It's still on trial. But so I think Israel has this tension. On the one hand, you know, it's a democratic country. It
portrays itself as a Western
democratic country, and it follows the rules of democratic states. On the other hand, it did come up quite quickly, and it does want to retain this aura of Middle Eastern country where you can, you know, smooth things a little bit. Don't go by the book. We always say, why Americans have to do everything by the book. We like to do a little bit of...
Why do Americans have to do everything legal?
Legally,
yes.
Exactly. And so we have this tension all the time between, people say law is law, transparency is transparency. You have to do it by the rules. You have to follow the rules. Then people are saying, if you want to build a big building or a big promenade, right, and you want to do it fast for your citizens, you can cut a little bit of deals in between. That's fine. And you have this tension all the time.
No, and not only that, I'm wondering, because we're looking at Ehud Olmert, and it's something maybe, and help me out to correct me if I'm wrong, in his lawsuit we had, the envelopes, the money, it all sounds very, it's a horrible thing. It's like giving fodder for people who do not like Jews, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like giving them that present. But these Israeli politicians seem to me as if they don't really think they're doing something wrong.
They don't. I think there's a big infatuation with money in Israel in the last 20 years. A lot of money was poured in here. Some of it was what you call black laundered.
Yeah.
And politicians saw the money and they liked what they saw and they understood it could advance them. Whether in the past, further past, maybe money was taken for the party or to advance your ideology. Now it's being taken to buy a better house or to get better contacts in the field. And you have this enamoration with money that you didn't have in the past, and it's corrupt.
Yeah, no, definitely. Money does corrupt, power does corrupt. When it comes to, that corruption with Israeli politicians, if we're looking at elections coming up, and do Israelis, the public, do they care about corruption?
That's a great question. I've been doing this for quite a while. I never understand fully, because sometimes I explain a corrupt system to people who I like, who I know are clean.
Exactly.
And I tell them, look, I investigated it. I'm not just talking, look, this was wrong and that was wrong.
That person was bribed, that person did that.
Exactly. And they say, well, you know what? You should go to the police. If the police doesn't investigate it, then I don't want to suspect anything. I don't want to hear about it. But then after a while, when they do get to know it, suddenly they feel, you know what? You were right. I think you this doesn't feel right. So I think people don't want corruption, but on the other hand, they want to pretend that maybe some of the things we call corrupt are not that corrupt, are just, partially corrupt. Maybe they're a little bit legit.
Right.
Because if you say we're completely corrupt, then nothing here is right. And then what do you do with it?
Are we completely corrupt?
I don't think we're completely corrupt, but I think it's creeping. It's a lot of the things that have been done here in the last 20 years, including good things, were at least mildly involved in corruption.
When we look at, the connection that a newspaper, that Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, or the Marker always makes between, money, power, and they're all interlaced, and media and whatnot. And you're an investigative reporter. I'm wondering out loud, it's no secret that you worked for Channel 10. There was a big investigation there into Sheldon Adelson, who is a very good friend of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Yet the kibosh was put on it.
Yeah.
Yet it was kind of shut down.
It was aired, and then later on he retracted, but with a very bizarre apology. Of course, it has to be stated. I've stated it many times. We don't apologize for anything. We stand by the story. The network had to apologize because its owner, Ron Lauder, who's himself a big tycoon, was pressured by Edelson, at least according to what we were told, and the network retracted it. Now, this is always a problem. You have the people who try to expose the corruption, and you have the people who try to hide the corruption. And this battle, it's not just in this case. It's
sifting all the way to the media, to the so-called fourth estate, to the watchdog that is supposed to give out information.
It's very hard to be a reporter these days who tries to clean up stuff, because you don't have a lot of force behind you these days. Media don't make much money, and the slightest threat could sometimes cripple an investigative story and make you, and that's after you've conquered your own fears of being, chased.
Yeah. And then
legally, I'm talking, not
no, of course, not
around the streets of Jaffa.
And everything is alleged.
Everything
is alleged. We have to say, fascinating stuff, Avner. We've locked you in the studio because we like having you here. As we move on,
thank you very much.
To the spiral viral that is the web review. Yes, bringing it back to Tony Grant.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Much is a buzz about Times shortlist picks for Person of the Year.
Right, it's the end of the year.
Coming up soon. I think it'll be announced Wednesday, but let's look at some of the people that they are
Yeah,
considering.
who's on the list? Person of the Year.
Well,
it's not you, Avner. Sorry.
Speaking of anti-corruption efforts, Vladimir Putin
No.
is on the list.
Corrupt.
Not in the least. Taylor Swift.
Stop. Come on. Come on.
What? Ferguson protesters.
Okay.
Who else? The NFL guy. I can't think of his name.
That NFL guy.
The Kurdish leader. I gotta check my glasses.
Yes.
But Vladimir Putin and Taylor Swift. I mean, wow.
Vladimir Putin. I'm sorry. I'll hand it. I'll tell you why. Because he really does what he wants and gets away with it. And come on, in many ways,
he's sort of like a dark Ban Ki-moon.
And he's changing. Yeah, but he's changing borders in Europe.
He is. I mean,
on the other hand,
influential.
yes. On the other hand, Taylor Swift. Okay.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. Was born in 1989.
Well, that's her new album.
That's
1989.
I said my piece.
Yes, and it's a big hit, and I'm.
I can't.
I joined the army in 1989. Boy.
Well, one person who's not on the list.
Who?
Baroness Jenkin.
Baroness Jenkin.
Baroness Jenkin.
I'm like, who? Yeah.
That's her. She's big in England, and she claims that poor people are hungry because they don't know how to cook.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marie Antoinette. Yeah.
Britain has their own.
Yes.
She's, kind of, explaining her position, taking out of context.
Like, let me just give you some great recipes for dirt.
Yeah. Fish and chip.
This is how you stir fry
She's
dirt.
Baroness Jenkin of Kennington, and she made the remarks while launching a major report that showed 4 million people are hungry in the UK. So again, I don't think she's going to be on that list of Person of the Year.
I do not. And this goes back to the point of that always amazed me about England, and I know we love the Queen, but come on, it's the 21st century.
She's still a Baroness, regardless of the century.
She's still a Baroness.
She was born in 1989.
She was not.
No,
not
she was not.
But speaking of royalty, Kate and William are in New York City.
Finally.
Yeah, so they're having...
What are they wearing?
Lots of great things. She's showcasing a lot of British designers. Such as Goat.
Goat?
Yeah, it's one of the brand names.
That sounds like a disease.
Oh, no,
and
Goat.
An animal.
Like
goat.
Yeah.
Goat. Okay.
She wants to go to the Empire State Building.
Isn't she pregnant? She's going to take the elevator
up.
Okay,
yeah.
yes. Okay.
I don't know if we have any footage of them.
Do we have
I don't
Will
know.
and Kate?
If we do,
don't
or
know.
if we, look.
There we go.
Okay, there they are. With LeBron James.
LeBron, to be king and to be
think
prince.
That was in
and
Brooklyn.
What did they give him? Did they just get that, or they give him? That does look like Brooklyn.
It is the season.
No, they do. She looks fabulous.
Always does.
She looks fabulous.
Yeah.
I hate her.
Good stuff.
Yes, everybody move back. No Ferguson demonstrators here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So interesting stuff there. Back to American television. The Anaconda controversy. Did you follow that? There was this Discovery show where this guy was.
Honey, that's what I have for you for. Yes.
It's called Eaten Alive. And they were billing it as a way for people to see him actually get eaten by a giant snake. And so people actually...
not Kate and wishes to...
people were disappointed that he actually wasn't eaten alive. The snake just ate the guy's hat.
This was the idea of a show?
Well, this was like a huge hit. They were promoting it,
Eaten alive.
Watch him get eaten by an anaconda.
The man survives. We wanted to see. This is, folks. This is now. Stick with me. This is the problem of reality television. This is what it led to.
Wait, the man was supposed to be
eaten alive.
Maybe it's too early for me.
Maybe just partially eaten
by an anaconda, or partially eaten. And
is that legal?
I think in television everything is legal.
Pretty much,
But you see what reality television has done to us? We want live
We want to see the.
we want to see the gore.
But you said you're going to commit suicide on
air,
yeah.
Tony. Yes. Okay.
Well, actually, talk about rough stuff. Florida clubbing. Yes. Have you heard about Drake was punched in a nasty Florida club brawl?
Okay.
Yes. No, this
Punch
is...
Daddy?
Yeah, it was involving Sean P. Diddy Combs there. Apparently they were fighting outside the club about the rights to a song which Drake allegedly used without getting the legal permission.
And that's the way to solve it.
Yes, by throwing blows. Apparently,
and they were in
went
Florida.
To the hospital.
You see, and they were in Florida. That's what Florida
does. It was on the
people.
heels of Art Basel in Miami, which is where all the trendy people come to buy art for like $16 million per painting. Not that
Those
there's any
arts in
corruption in the
Florida?
art
Who's
world.
the woman in the background?
Once a year.
Who's the woman?
I don't know, maybe
Maybe
she
they
was.
would fought after
Yeah.
Usually there's a beautiful woman involved in a
No,
club brawl.
This point was music.
Speaking of women,
Yes.
also in Miami, Leo DiCaprio left a Miami club with 20 women by his side.
Oh God.
Yes. Apparently they
With 20, he had like a one-night stand there with 20
No.
women?
He apparently they were attracted by his beard. That's a new thing now. Okay.
I'm gonna look at that picture, and as a woman, I gotta say, no.
It's a bit ISIS style, isn't it?
This is what we need him here for, to put things in their proper context.
To get the lawsuit.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually
No,
just-
it's
just-
true. It's like too.
I mean, this
it's
for
like
a
beer
roller,
to
this
Holly.
for a port. Do we know? No, he just.
No. He we know that he likes to club, and we know that he loves the ladies, and the ladies love him back.
I'm wondering about the beard. I mean, was this, who knows?
Don't know.
Yeah.
But he was seen leaving the club. We don't know where he went with them. You know, did he go onto a yacht with the who knows? But there were apparently 20. There were counts being taken.
He did his club, of course.
To his, I gotta say, DiCaprio doesn't do it to me. Yeah.
Well, no comment
Yes.
on the 20 ladies that may have something
That
done.
do think that he looks okay.
Martha Stewart?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Back in New York, it's rumored that Martha Stewart is going to be opening up her first cafe.
Oh my
Now.
word!
Yes. Now.
I have to move back to New York.
It's in the Starrett Leahy building, which is in Chelsea, where her office is. So interesting on the culinary front. Is it a response to Gwyneth Paltrow's pop-up Goop
It
shop in
should-
Detroit or Michigan? I think it was.
I know. I mean,
Time
I'm
will
hearing
tell.
the
It's
Oscar
amazing
music
she
in
never
my ear.
had one before.
I know,
I
it's
know,
true, but
that's
I
the
want to say,
thing.
in Martha Stewart's word, neat. Thank you for this part of the show. Of course, Tony Grant, Avner Hofstein. We will be back. Stay with us. First, let's go back to the morning news. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition, December 9th. Yes, it is December 9th, 2014. Almost the end of the year, but this is a time to be here with us because we are joined by Avri Rosen-Tzvi of The Culture magazine. Also by the beautiful Tal Heinrich, but that's a little bit later on.
Thank you.
That's slightly later on. But we're going to go, as we always say, first to beauty, and that's Avri.
Yes.
Yes, Avri. Interesting.
Beauty before age.
Exactly. Beauty before brains. What do you have for us?
Well, we'll start with the Kennedy Center honors, which were awarded on Sunday.
Yeah.
Since 1978, the Kennedy Center sort of honors artists of stage, television, and movies.
That's a huge honor bestowed upon people in the States. Yes.
Yeah, and it gives presidents, the opportunity to rub shoulders with the rich and not the rich.
No, but
the
with
rich.
the,
They rub
and I
shoulders
think
with the rich.
not only that, Americans love their award shows. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
That in the United States, basically everything is an award show because they never got over the prom. It's kind of that. Everybody wants to dress up for the prom for the rest of their lives. I've said my piece. Move on. Yes.
And President Obama, God love him, he loves to, he loves to hang out with the celebrities.
He hangs.
And he loves to crack jokes, and it gives him the opportunity to do both.
Okay.
This year, Tom Hanks, Sting, Lily Tomlin, and also Al Green received the honors.
Wow.
But it's an interesting list when you look, since Obama, the White House doesn't choose the people who receive the Kennedy Center honors, but they have to be with the president, so I'm sure they're sort of going with the spirit of the commander,
right?
As
the
we
commander
say.
in chief.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And since he's been chosen, Letterman got it, De Niro, Streisand, Meryl Streep, Springsteen is a big one.
All registered Democrats.
Yeah. Jimmy Page, Robert Plant.
Wow. Yeah.
Big names.
Big
received
names.
it.
Big names.
And and so.
Did we ever bid out of this thing? Out of this award ceremony? No, huh? There's no video that came out of there.
No, there
we
is.
We do. Okay.
The White House has official video, and so we can see Obama sort of cracking jokes.
Cracking jokes. Let's take a look at this amazing, amazing award show.
About 40 years ago, a young singer-songwriter named Gordon Sumner was known to wear a yellow and black striped sweater. Ever since, he's been known by one name, Sting. Now, not everybody can pull off a name like Sting, but this guy can. His wife, Trudy, calls him Sting. Apparently his kids call him Sting. POTUS is a pretty good nickname. But let's face it, it's not as cool as Sting. I kind of wish I was called Sting. I'm stuck with POTUS.
Maybe that should have been the chosen career.
He has great writers, and he can deliver.
No, he definitely, listen, he can deliver. That's why he's president. I mean, he did it so well in every campaign. What I love about this, have you noticed the color of the medals bestowed upon them?
Yeah, it's very nice.
It's the rainbow. Come on. Is everybody thinking what I'm thinking?
That they're all gay?
No. No, but it's a nice shout out to the gay community. I think, it's the rainbow colors. Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good one. What else?
A new Bond girl was announced this week.
Oh, yes.
They announced a new title, the new car, which is so important. Cars and girls.
Cars and Bond and girls,
yeah.
yes.
Who's your favorite Bond?
Who's my favorite Bond? I have to say Sean Connery.
Yeah.
It was my favorite Bond. He is,
yeah.
He really
Although
is.
I kind of have a soft spot for Roger Moore.
I had for a while, because when I was starting to see Bond movies with my dad, that's the ones we used to go see actually in the movie theater. But then, when video came out, I saw the Sean Connery one. I was like, yummy, Scottish, come on, yes.
Great.
Okay.
So we prepared a small story about what happened to Bond girls after, because some of the actresses didn't get a great career.
Very good take on that. Let's take a look.
Last week, under the spotlight of cameras and journalists, director Sam Mendes revealed the title of the next James Bond film, the new car, and most importantly, the Bond girls. Léa Seydoux and Monica Bellucci will join the Legacy Inspector, the new 007 film, the 24th film of its kind. As we all know, Bond attracts beautiful women. But after 50 years of loyal service to His Majesty, where are all these women today? The most emblematic of the ladies may be Swiss actress Ursula Andress, famous for her bikini used in James Bond 007 against Dr. No. A bikini auctioned in 2001 for the modest sum of £35,000. Ursula also starred in the film Fun in Acapulco with young co-star Elvis Presley. She also had significant roles in Italian cinema of the 80s, as in the romantic fantasy film The Cave of the Rose of Gold. Eunice Gayson is the only woman who had the privilege of standing next to Bond twice. In Dr. No and From Russia with Love, she plays Sylvia Trench. It was she who inspired Bond's famous line.
Trench. Sylvia Trench.
But she would fall back into anonymity days after it came out. While some actresses have not really been able to exploit their fleeting fame, for others, the role served as a jumping board. The most iconic of them, Carol Bouquet in 1981, For Your Eyes Only. Her eyes glared. Besides her Bond role as Melina Havelock, she also worked for some of the most prestigious directors such as Luis Buñuel and Bertrand Blier. In 2014, she was seen in the American miniseries Rosemary's Baby, directed by Agnieszka Holland. But we can't talk about James Bond girls without mentioning Sophie Marceau, Kim Basinger, and many others. Many of these illustrious women were quickly forgotten, such as Israeli actress Ali Zagur, the beautiful brunette known for a gypsy catfight, the French-Israeli Tanugi Saskia Cohen from Never Say Never Again. She has since become a drama teacher at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Swedish actress Maud Adams, who starred with Roger Moore in The Man with the Golden Gun, appeared in the series That 70s Show as a guest in the second season. As for Mariam Davo, who played Kara Milovi in The Living Daylights, she would go on to co-write the book Bond Girls Are Forever. James Bond loves women, but officially he has only married once. His first marriage was not a very happy one because his beloved wife, Tracy, is killed in the service of His Majesty. Today, Diana Trigg plays a much less sexy role as Olenna Tyrell in Games of Thrones. Will Spectre represent a career low point for Monica Bellucci and Léa Seydoux, or will it be a triumph? We will only know after November 2015, after the film is released.
I'm going to not stick on the point that Sam Mendes, who did American Beauty, is now directing him Bond movies, but Bellucci, come on.
Yeah. Well, it can't be a low point for her because she's already had a big career.
Okay, I'm going to shame you. How old are you, honey?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm 33.
You're 33. You're a baby. So Monica Bellucci, who you deemed old. Now, 50 is the new 30 as far as I'm concerned, and she looks fabulous. And I love the fact that she's like a Bond chick at 50, said the 43-year-old woman right here. Aha!
You can be a Bond. You know, it's still in your
Suck
future.
Up, suck up, suck up. It's going to work. Okay, but we are moving on.
Yes.
We're moving on to Tal Heinrich, our favorite Tal Heinrich, host of Focus Magazine. Before we start, which airs tonight?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, sorry, on Wednesday at 9:40 p.m.
7:40 GMT.
Brilliant. And this is what you're going to have for us. Please tell us, Tal Heinrich.
So yeah, this week we decided to put the focus on India, where sexual harassment against women, violence against women in general, is just a massive problem, huge problem. And however, it seems that now a new struggle against it, or to raise more awareness to this subject, is now kind of awakened. Let me start with some facts and numbers, just maybe to reflect, the massive problem. The most horrifying fact is first that the majority of the offenders are actually known to the victims. I mean,
no, the terrible thing, and first of all, the numbers in India are huge, but the fact that rape, and I think that goes world round, that around the world, rape is usually perpetrated by somebody that you know. Which is a horrific.
So according to the country's National Crime Record Bureau, 93 women are raped in India every day, which means every 21 minutes a rape is committed. And it's an average of more than 2 rapes per day. And this is happening in the last, 13 years.
13 years. That's more. Yes. That's over a decade.
But recently, as said, there's more international awareness
because of a certain. Well, there's more international awareness, but also because of a piece of video that's going viral, right?
Yeah, the social media is playing a big role in this. And let's take a look at this video. That it was a few weeks ago. 2 Indian sisters started beating,
their attackers.
Three men on a bus.
And this is why I think also, not just the focus and the, focus show, but the focus of the international community.
And
has been
the big gang rape from 2012.
Let's take a look at the clip from India.
Despite the fact that no passengers were helping them?
That's right. Amitabh, this incident took place on Friday when both these girls, who are students of Girls College Rohtak, they boarded this Haryana Roadways bus after giving their exam. And
so what is going on in that video is basically 2 girls are on a bus in India.
2 sisters, 3 men just, starting harassing them, sexual harassing them, and they started beating them up. Courageous.
No, incredibly courageous.
Most of the women are, but Yael, what's important here is that we don't see any other passenger,
come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the saddest part about this video, And now there's a new initiative to raise more awareness to this problem by an Indian-American filmmaker, Ram Davidanani. He made a comic book with a superhero.
It's like a graphic comic,
right?
It's
a graphic comic book, yes, with a female rape survivor as a superhero.
So we have I think we have some images of that comic book coming up.
Yes, so her name is Preya, and she's a young woman. She's a gang rape survivor. Along with the goddess Pravati, she fights against gender, sex crimes in India. In the end, she even gets, to retaliate. She goes back to the town where she was born on the back of a tiger, and she gets her revenge.
It's magnifying and strengthening the woman's image. Let's take a look at here. So this is India's new comic superhero, Priya.
This is her tiger, and
how is this doing in India? Do we know? I mean, what is the reaction to it?
First of all, you can download it both in Indian and in English online. Yeah. There's like a digital copy of it, and here, this is her family. You must have provoked them.
Which is, what's fascinating about this is he's taking this to popular culture. And I think, in India, what we've known over the course of the last 13 years is that the women, sadly, in patriarchal societies, are usually blamed for the rape, are usually blamed for the sexual...
Exactly. Yeah. And this filmmaker, what he said, that he was in India back in 2012 when the massive protest erupted. And he said he met some police officer who told him, no good girl walks alone at night, and this is where his idea began. He said, "I realized that rape and sexual violence in India was a cultural issue, just like you said, and that it was backed by people's perceptions."
By people's perceptions, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it's continuing as well, which is the other thing.
And speaking of culture, on Focus Magazine, we made an interview with Anupam Kher. He's a very known Bollywood star who actually was able to make it outside the borders of India. He appeared in the very acclaimed international film, 2002 Golden Globe nominated, Bend It Like Beckham.
Ah,
He
okay.
was the father there, and I asked
Ben
him.
like Beckham, even Avery knows.
Yeah, you saw it. So he plays the father of the main actress there, who the soccer player.
And he came out to basically react to the.
Kind of, yeah. I asked him, how can you explain this increasing statistics of sexual harassment in India when the very same society has such strict rules when it comes to sexual content in movies?
No, what did he have to say? We have a clip of that. Well, let's take a look.
He struggled.
Let's take a look.
I personally felt that was a very unfortunate. Any rape incident anywhere in the world is an unfortunate incident. But unfortunately, when it happens in third world country or in countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the West likes to glorify it and West likes to frighten the people. I think if you compare American rape or crime ratio, I'm sure it must be much more higher than India. That doesn't mean that it's okay to happen that in India. It's shameful, and I completely sort of criticize it and don't accept it as a normal human situation. But cinema has nothing to do with it. You see, the literacy and illiteracy has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I have to say this because
Yes.
I think only a man could come up with an argument of, yes, maybe this is happening here, but just look at us, it's happening all over. Which
It is, but yeah.
which is a frightening argument to come up.
But the numbers are crazy.
Yeah, what are the numbers in India? I mean, as we said before, the numbers...
More than 2 rapes every hour.
Exactly. So more than 2 rapes every hour. I don't know what the number in the United States. It's an ongoing, it's an ongoing phenomenon, sadly, all over the world. But in India...
But the fact, that the victim itself, has to face this,
No, it has to
feeling and
And to be blamed for it, and to be blamed for, which is the other thing that, we constantly see in Western society, I think, and now also in India. He said that Bollywood doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm just interested
Yeah, he said cinema has nothing to do with it, right?
I'm just wondering out loud because I think Bollywood, and it's not graphic. I'm glad Avery is here with us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a graphic type cinema, the Indian cinema, but they do have. They do have mentality. Have you seen a lot of Indian movies?
Maybe a playful sort of thing with women.
With women, exactly.
Yeah.
Which
It doesn't really reflect the reality in India. I mean, it does because tradition-wise it does maybe, but not when it comes to sexual content.
And again, the music in my ear, because we could discuss a bit fascinating stuff. Focus Magazine tomorrow, 9:30 in the evening, right?
Yep.
Local time. There we have it. That's all for us now, folks. Join us again tomorrow morning for another morning edition of I-24 News, the way you should start your day every single day, because you just should. Thank you.